So I don't really have that much to upload right now, and I have been wanting to make a video like this in a while. A more personal related video talking about my own favorites and kind of like my own opinion on these characters. Today I'm here with the video going over my top 3 favorite DPS in the game. 2 of these were really easy to say, and the third one was really hard because past the first 2, I have a lot of favorites that I really like using that are very interchangeable when it comes to usage wise. But I think with enough thought out ideas, I think I do have my opinion on that third slot mainly. And so I wanted to make a video like this, and you guys did seem to really enjoy the first personal sided video I did make being my own personal pull plans. So I thought I'd try to make another more personal sided video, and if this also does well, I probably will continue doing stuff like this, where I have more personal sided things such as favorite characters, favorite supports, why I like said character or not, so on and so forth. The way this video is going to work is, of course, I'm going to go from 3rd to 1st, starting at 3rd, then 2nd, and then 1st. Revealing the character, you'll see it in the background footage first. Then I'll be talking about why I like them, what I thought initially, and so on. How much I like them as an actual character outside of usage-wise, and all that good stuff. Kicking it off with number 3, of course, going to none other than Fei Xiao. It's really weird to think about how Fei Xiao came out over a year ago now. And to this day, I actively use her. I'm not going to lie. When it comes to DPS wise usage, I think Fei Xiao probably has my most usage rated character. Ever since her first banner in 2.5, I did go for E2S1. Of course, I did test like E0S1, E0S0, all that good stuff. But on my own account, the first actual banner in my first initial summons, I brought her immediately to E2S1. If there's something you guys don't know about me, single target characters are usually always my favorite when it comes to usage wise. Previously, I was kind of cringe and I thought every AoE character was boring and not worth using and just boring. Even though the game is AoE centric, I was always like, single target is just better. Now I've moved on, I've grown as a person, it's only been a year, don't ask what happened in the year. Single target is still far and none my favorite. Of course, my actual favorite characters now to use are mostly AoE, which we'll get onto in a bit, but single target still does hold a place in my heart. That's why Emiya is also one of my other favorite characters to use, but I do think Fei Xiao still does take the cake. Follow-up attack is still nonetheless my favorite archetype in the game. Any follow-up buff I will pull for, no questions asked. I could even not end up liking the character and I still will pull for them because I like follow-up attacks that much. Originally, I wasn't even going to pull for Cypher. I ended up getting her very late to the banner, practically like a few hours before it ended, and then I got her E2 before the banner ended because I got to test it a bit and I was like, damn, yeah, I really need this. But Fei Xiao probably was one of the characters that really revived how much I wanted to play the game. When Fei Xiao came out, I genuinely do not think I have ever played the game more outside of E6ing Aventurin. Of course, that was probably when I most played the game, you know, testing him everywhere, and I mean quite literally everywhere and every little thing I can do. Fei Xiao probably was the second time where I tested her in even Simulated Universe. If you guys don't know, I hate Simulated Universe, I hate Divergent Universe, it is so incredibly boring to me. But Fei Xiao was so goddamn fun that I even took her in that mode. I took her in Pure Fiction, I took her in APOC, again I take her in MLC mainly, and even now with the new Anomaly mode, I use her in there as well. To this day, I actively use Fei Xiao, and I really do not see me using her any less because she is still just incredibly fun. When she came out, I already did have an E1 S1 Topaz and an E1... No, I didn't have an E1, actually. I did end up getting E1 Robin on the banner that was rerunning with Fei Xiao because she was out at the time. But I did have an E1 S1 Topaz for her. I had Aventurin ready, and I had Robin ready, pretty much just replacing Dr. Ratio as a whole unit, unfortunately. So I was ready, I was strapped, and oh my god, like, actually just so fun. Her follow-up attacks are super satisfying. I kind of wish they did more damage, though. Like, the actual follow-up attack doesn't do more. But her ultimate is just doing 1,000,000 plus each back then and now. Well, it didn't reach 1,000,000 back then. It reached usually roughly 800, 900k. Now with Cypher, it reaches from 1,000,000 to 1.2 million each time. But yeah, back then, just so fun. She absolutely plowed through every content, and I did get Jade E1, so I was able to use Fei Xiao plus Jade in Pure Fiction practically permanently, and I still am able to. To this day, again, she clears fantastic in APOC. She clears MLC 0 cycles, no questions asked. She's able to 3-star the anomaly modes, of course, minus the knights in check, or kings in check, whatever the hell it's called. Really can just full star everything, 0 cycle, max score in Pure Fiction, get a high score in APOC. To this day, just such a fun character, such a well thought out kit with a high ceiling as well. Usage wise and also Ireland wise, Fei Xiao pre-E2 is still very much usable, but obviously is going to struggle a lot more. Her E2 giving her a full stack when somebody uses a follow-up tech is absolutely game-changing. I have absolutely zero regrets and is probably the best DPS investment I've done thus far. Of course, that might change with 3.x units. Maybe I stop using Faison sometime in 4.x, which I really don't see. I probably still will keep using her. She has just done so much, and I could probably have really not invested in any other team and just kept going with the Faison team and what I had, and probably still would be completely fine clearing endgame. She is just so incredibly strong, and it actually baffles me that she was one of the hyper characters that was more skipped. I don't really know why, because she was supposed to be like on the level of like Acheron, Firefly, and all that stuff, but when you look at her sales and how many people actually went for her, there's a lot less people that have her as opposed to the others. I don't necessarily know why, and I think those people low-key missed out, because god, Faison is actually so goddamn fun. And then when it comes to a character in the lore, she is super freaking cool. She's not like my top 3 or top 5 even favorites, but she's definitely in my top 10, I had to say. I'd have to pull up a list and really think about my ranking for top 10. But I definitely do think she would be in my top 10 favorites. Everything she did have in 2.5 was really cool. I do think Zhanzhou as a whole, or however you say it, Shanzhou, I don't know. If you speak Chinese in the comments, please let me know. I'd love to know. The entire arc, I think, is relatively underdeveloped and is just not really that good. And really, before Amphorius, I think none of the stories were really that good. I wasn't the biggest fan of Penacony, and even they themselves admitted it was rushed. Zhanzhou and so on did fall under that troop as well. The only one that really felt completed was Belobog, which that was also kind of short. So I do hope if we do go back, we get more stuff for Faison. I do think us returning to it and the Faison stuff definitely did help, but it wasn't enough. I really do hope we get to see more in the future regarding her specifically. And maybe she'll become even more of a favorite character then. But in the lore, she's definitely one of my top 10 favorites, but not necessarily up there with my actual top 5 or even top 3 especially. Number 2, of course, this now goes to my newly E6 Evernight. Even if I did not have her E6, let's say if I had her E2, E1, or even E0, she probably would really much be up here. I do not physically think I could ever have a character be one of my favorites to run if they cannot be sustainless. That's why Castris has no chance in ever being one of my favorite characters to use. But Evernight ended up changing that entirely because she doesn't drain the team's HP and rather focuses on herself, and it's also not really that like uncontrollable. She can very much do it and handle it. She, of course, had potential to be up there, and I used her so much at E0, E1, and E2. It's actually insane how much I tested her. I haven't really tested a character that much in a long time. And she's also a weird one because previously I thought she was like, you know, alright at best. And I don't know why. I already had this in like my first and final impressions video, but like I started thinking like, it's gonna be like whatever, probably like an E0 unit just because I like March like that. But then I really thought about it, and it's like, I didn't try this, and that. I didn't try to play her better than I usually did. I didn't try all these ceiling levels, and then I really decided to sit down, test her, and then my opinion just skyrocketed. I could not get enough of testing her. Like, I just wanted to continuously test her. I was on private servers for so long testing her just because she was so goddamn fun once it really clicked with me. And I also really didn't test E2 that much before I decided to. So before E2, I really just tested E1 and E0. Where she was really goddamn strong. Like, her only problem was the light cone issue if you didn't have her S1. Get her S1, it's great, then it's just kind of single target issue, which really isn't an issue, especially if you have support Eidolons where her damage is already really high. You get E1, and boom, now she quite literally has no issues at all. And I'm someone who didn't pull Hyacinth on her original banner. I probably will get her on a rerun just to have her. And the fact that she is not anywhere near as Hyacinth tied as Castris was, that was something I did think she was originally, but you know, I was kind of stupid when I thought that. Usually I only form my opinions finalized when it comes to testing the unit myself, and I don't know why this time I decided to think like, oh yeah, people are saying she's not going to be that good without Hyacinth just like Castris. I thought about it, I'm like, yeah, because Hyacinth like can give some Memoria stacks and all that, and yeah, that's going to be the case. Until I really decided to test it myself, and yeah, she does not need Hyacinth, she does sustainless, and it's just, she does everything. You get E1, S1, and you have this unit that literally covers quite literally everything. Her entire mechanic of stacking Memoria and recycling her Memo Sprite is insanely fun. I don't know why. I don't know what it is either. I just think her animations are also just very swaggy. They're very short and sweet. They're very nice. And I also just really like Evernight as a character. And her design. Oh my god, you can't even get me started on her design. Her design is actually probably my favorite in the game. So yeah, I tested her so much at all these levels, and then I was just like, yeah, this E2 is something I need. Once I really got her E2, I was like, the amount of Memoria stacks you have, the permanent Darkest Riddle state, the absolute damage output you can get with her is just insane. She's probably the first character, or maybe second, maybe this happened with Final, and that's why I also like using him a pretty good amount, of just being like pure unga bunga high number neuron activation. Usually, I don't care about that. Like, Anaxa, he would be someone that gets a relatively high number, but he does it twice, but he doesn't get, like, an insane number. Like, he doesn't reach Finon numbers with his, like, shot, but you gotta remember, he can fire up to 4 shots with Cerebra. He can fire 2 shots by himself. And then you add those 2 numbers together, and you can get a really good number. Usually that's something I would go with, and usually it would be smaller increments of good numbers rather than one big number. Evernight, for some reason, just activated the neuron in my head, and seeing the numbers she did at E2, at E1, just seeing these millions and millions after the detonation, and especially stacking Memoria constantly, it was just insanely satisfying. So I do not think there's a more satisfying character, of course, besides number 1 that we'll get into shortly. But her damage potential is great. I don't have to ever run her with the sustain to clear anything. She just absolutely shreds through everything with her insane damage output. The only mode she isn't like super insane in, but still does well in, is APOC, and that's just because, you know, the whole weakness break cringe, which you can realistically bypass, especially with an Evernight like mine that just does stupid damage. And I really think her whole getting more speed percent based off Memoria stacks consumed up to 50% is also just really, really fun to mess around with. Messing around with that can increase her actual usage ceiling as well. Not just when it comes to getting her dupes and all that stuff. Her usage ceiling definitely does increase with how her kit does work. And I definitely do think she has a higher ceiling than a lot of M4A's characters and a lot of characters in the game. Especially when you're trying to have lower investment and clear at higher speeds like 0 cycles with low investment and such. Doing that with her was really fun. Using her at early dupes E1 and such was really fun. Using her at E2 felt like I was just in God mode. And now, going up to E6, I feel like I am the boss. Like, they are the ones trying to clear me, and I am the endgame. I am quite literally the endgame for this game. They have to try to beat me. For me, it's not a consideration now. They have to try to be like, how can we kill him before he one-shots us? It's so satisfying. Just the numbers are so good. You combine that with the animation and her peak design, and her voice is just great. And it's just such a fun unit. And then when it does come to her actual story and personality and lore and such, I always was a March fan. I really liked her. I thought she was a very funny character. Definitely gave the cast a lot more life when it came to the main. And we always knew there was going to be another side of March since the beginning. We didn't know if it was actually going to be like an eviler March or like a lot more sinister March or how it's going to play out. Lo and behold, a bunch of versions later, we finally get Evernight being that second half that we finally were waiting for. And she ended up being great. Her entire motives were great. I think she was very, very well written. Again, her design was just absolutely on fleek, bro. It's actually just insane how good it is. I do wish they did more for her splash art, though. That one was kind of criminal, but her design is so good that it makes up for it. I was really scared that she potentially never would end up being in the story again, but thankfully she just, you know, went to sleep back in the iceberg, or crystal, whatever the hell you want to call it. I was really, really scared at the end there would be like, oh, yep, she's going to just, you know, disappear, and we're never going to see her again, and I was going to cry. But no, they did suggest that she can be called upon at any time to be taken over as the Dark Half, and I cannot wait to see her in the future again. I don't exactly know where she would rank in my top favorites as well. She'd also be in my top 10 favorite. But yep, she definitely does take my second favorite spot for a DPS that I like using. And to top it all off, the number 1 slot goes none other. This is not really going to be a shocker for any of you that have watched my channel by now, and that is Anaxa. For a unit who has relatively mediocre dupes and mediocre vertical investment, this guy is just such a perfect goddamn unit. I've played Gachas for years, and I don't think a character that's a DPS has ever been made better, I'm not gonna lie. Necessarily, he didn't really power creep anyone, yet he came in to be one of the best DPSs in the game at the same time, which, deny it or not, I don't care. He just really ended up taking that, like, number 1, the number, like, whatever you want to consider it. I still think he is, like, the best DPS in the game with what he can do. But they finally decided to design a unit that isn't saturated on any overgiven buffs. For example, a really big problem with Finon is he is very saturated on actual self-buffing stuff, so like crit damage, attack percent, all the stuff that can be provided by supports. A lot of it gets diluted on Finon just because he gives himself so much of it. This happens to a lot of characters. A lot of characters in some way, shape, or form are diluted in either attack, crit, or so on, especially with the teams they maybe ran on. Anaxa, on the other hand, can be oversaturated on 2 things. One of them is insanely rare, that is only really accessed via a debuff means, and even then you don't really run a debuffer on his team because he is the debuffer. And the other one is just kind of his internal kit. One of them is damage. He has multipliers, he gives himself damage, he makes enemies take increased damage, all that stuff, so that is a bit oversaturated, but not to the point where it's completely useless. And then the other one, which honestly depends on your teams but can be very easy to saturate on, is Defense Ignore. Also Shred, but it's the same thing, so I'm just going to refer to it as Defense Ignore. He gets 28% in his base kit, his Lycon provides like what, 12%, his E1 can provide 16%, and he can get up to 20% at all times with the Genius set. Dude can quite literally get 70% plus E1 S1 by himself on a Genius set. Like, what the actual hell? He gives himself a lot of crit damage as a hyper carry character. Being one erudition on the team, it gives him 140%, which technically can saturate it a lot, especially since you factor in how much you're getting on crit rolls and such. But that also means you can focus a lot less on crit damage and focus on the stuff like speed, attack percent, and also crit rate, because you want to 100% get him to 100% crit rate as well. He is such a unique character that thrives off rare things like Defense Ignore, as I mentioned, and because of that, he's deprived on like attack percent. Attack percent is a very insanely good buff on him that is going to reap insane benefits as opposed to someone like Finon who has a ton of it already. Crit buffs on him are going to be great. Res Pen is just as good on him as anyone else as well. The ceiling the dude has and how he just really can work with literally every single support in the game. He works great with even someone like Hanya and even Yukong. You can use Yukong with him pretty well. Really, there's just never been a character that is designed so well, especially with the state of the game. And out of all the time I've played gacha games, I don't think there's really just been a better character made with how he works and his double skill, implanting every weakness so you can quite literally bypass and use him on every single stage you want because his type coverage is not a problem. Weakness lock doesn't really change that either because he can implant the weakness on weakness locked enemies, so let's fucking go, I guess. It was already so insane and so flexible when it came to before Sridra. Now Sridra does exist. She has an attack buff which covers him really good and can give him up to 4 instances of skill, which is just bonkers. The fact you can get 4 skills is just so stupid. And as I mentioned, like in the beginning of this whole thing, he himself doesn't have the greatest vertical investment. His E2 is really good, but you can look at it as a lot of damage buffs for your entire team as opposed to himself. Of course, he is still going to get increased damage, like his E1 is more defense shred, his E2 is also res lower, and then of course his E4 and E6, which is just for him. Technically, E6 is also for the team, if you think about it. But his E1 is really bad. In these days standards, 3.x dupe, his E1 is just bad. His E2 is really good, but with the E2s we have from like Finon and Castros, it's also really just not that good. His E4 is up to a 60% increase to attack, which is pretty good, especially for an E4. And his E6, the crazy part is, yes, it's unconditional, it's just 130% of the original damage, and then you give 50% damage out to everyone, including him, because now the erudition trace no longer has a limit. It will always be active, both effects being the crit damage and also the damage dealt. But the thing is, there's quite literally a character in this game, looking at you, Akron, who gets 160% of the original damage in their base kit. Yes, Akron is restricted to Nihility characters on the team, but her E2 will quite literally reduce that by half, and you always would want to run a Nihility character for debuffs anyways. And Anaxa, his E6, a character and a dupe where you have to pull them and then pull them 6 times, racking up to 500 plus pulls, has something that is weaker than something that someone has in their base kit. His dupes are that bad, yet he is that strong of a character at base that anything you pull for him, yes, it's still going to be an upgrade and be good. It makes him that good. Not only is he insanely fun, not only can you use him with every support and have fun with it and probably clear with it, you can literally just run him anywhere at all times. There's nothing he really just can't do. He really does have the most fun kit in my opinion. With the amount of stuff you can do, the double skill setups, if you have E2, you can get double skill right away. At E0S0, he competes completely fine. He has a free-to-play light code that was made just for him. Again, I cannot stress how crazy it is the fact that he works with every single support. Vertical investment can only really be something you consider in him if you really like him. And that was exactly the case for me. He was my favorite M4S character and also my second favorite character in Starl, hence why I went for that E6. They're all definitely noticeable. The extra shed from his E1 can help you get closer to 100%. The E2 is an all-side res lower, which is going to be permanent increase to damage. And also the double skill at the start of battle is really good. E4 attack increase is going to be very much felt. And E6, it is 130% of the original damage. Original damage scaling is pretty funny. It depends on what you're doing and what your supports are providing. If you do like next to no damage originally, the original damage increase is not going to be that much. But if you do have a lot of damage and the original damage gets increased like that, then it's going to skyrocket even higher. In my case, I use him at an insane amount at E0, E1, E2. I've tested the guy probably more than a lot of people have even used him in general, just because I have that much fun with him. I think he is the only character I ever go on a private server just to try to do low cost runs and low cost clears where I take off all the dupes on my Anoxa and try to do clears in that sense, just because he is that fun. Trying to do low cost clears with him is just insane. He works the best like that. Most of the CN base would tell you the same thing, like he is like that guy. When it comes to low cost clears, he's very fun to figure out, very fun to work around, has a high, probably one of the highest ceilings when it comes to usage, and it is just so incredibly fun to find out new things he can do. Funny interactions with Cerebro, seeing how you can either melt someone like butter, or figure out how you can clear with him at even a 0 cycle level with a very low investment. At every level I've used him on, he's never disappointed me. On every stage, he's never disappointed me. And I really don't think there's any unit that nearly comes close to him. Like, Everknight's my second favorite, and Anoxa is just gap on 1. And his sound effects on his skill, bro, is so goddamn beefy. I really like animations in this game, but I like quick animations better because I hate wasting my time. Long and cool animations are cool and all, but fast and satisfying animations are way better. A lot of people complain about Anoxa's animation, which I can understand to an extent, but I really don't think it could be any better. The sound effects are so beefy, you see it multiple times, and if it was a long animation, imagine seeing that 4 times, I would probably lose my mind. Everything about him is perfect. I think his kit is perfect, the way he works is perfect, the things he can do is perfect. There's really not anything I think that he could get that would be better. He did get nerfed right before he did release with V5 and such. I cannot imagine what things he would be doing if he did not end up getting nerfed, because how insane he is now. And I don't even gotta talk about this, but his only like real issue is like low investment level and low support costs. His only real struggle is gonna be full AoE at all times, so stuff like Pure Eviction, that's really his only weakness. The fact he can technically cover full AoE, covers really good blast, and covers exceptionally well single target thanks to being balanced is also just insane and makes him even more flexible than he already is. Definitely my favorite character to use. Probably will stay like that for a long time. I will continuously use him for as long as I can really imagine, until we probably get some character that works similar to him but better, which I really don't see happening. And then when it comes to him in his role Amphorius, he is just that guy. He is quite literally that guy. He will not even be there and everyone's like, damn, I am so glad that Anaxagoras did this. Anaxagoras did that. Oh my god, just like Anaxa said, he is literally him. He can be dead for the entire thing and he is just doing this, and that. Oh my god, he did this before because he foresaw all that. Dude is just so goddamn smart and so goddamn cool. Aura farming anytime he's on screen. 3.2 is probably still my favorite just because of all the stuff he did and then the way he exited with, you know, ripping out his core flame, laughing hysterically and disappearing. Just to continuously be goated in every single cycle. Like, you cannot make it up, bro. He is so goated. Definitely my second favorite character. Number 1 is still Aventurin. And who knows, if something happens to Amphorius where, let's say, Amphorius becomes real and then Anoxa can become a character that we see a lot in the future, maybe he'll go up and I'll like him more than Aventurin. I don't know. We'll have to see. That obviously comes with time. But nonetheless, Anoxa is really just my favorite character and there is no stopping him. And that does finally wrap up this video. It honestly took way longer than I thought it would be. If you somehow stick to the end, I appreciate it. Thank you so much for watching me yap through all that. But that is my top 3 favorite DPS to use of all time. Again, number 3 is kind of interchangeable, but Feisha definitely does take that spot, especially with how much I use her. Like, I have a lot of fun with Boothill and Yunli. I have tons of fun with Emi. I have tons of fun with Aglia and so on. But I definitely do think Feisha still is just deserving of that spot. And then Everknight and especially Anaxa are set in stone. But if you have watched it this far, again, very much appreciated. Comment down below your favorite top 3 DPS to use and also why. Would love to hear what you guys also like to use. I'm probably going to see a lot of Castrus and the Herda. I'm not going to lie. It's usually what I see when I ask this question. Which, nothing wrong with that. I'm just saying. But anyway, again, feel free to comment down below. If you did find this video enjoyable, dropping a like would be greatly appreciated. If you're new to the channel or haven't done so already, be sure to subscribe and turn the button for future videos like this, along with all the types of Star Wars content. And I'll see you later. Peace out.